Wheel of Time, adapted for TV by Amazon. I put a review on 2 or 3 places, and I gave it 3 stars. Not for any storyline, because so far it not that well. Let's start at the beginning. The beginning. They shouldn't have done that beginning scene. No. They tried to make it awesome and great, but it wasn't needed. There's not 4 ta'veren, by the way. There's 3. And the prophecies of the dragon specifically imply a male born on Dragonmount. It could be male, it could be female. I don't know, because I didn't read the book. I just read the highlights of the book and adapted it the way I thought it should be. Then we get to the town, Emond's Field. Introducing the Fade was not accurate. You can say, well, they adapted it. No, well, the story would have been more compelling for the introduction to have stuck strictly closer to the story. Rand and Tam never stayed the night in Emond's Field. They went back home because on their way to Emond's Field, they're supposed to see the Fade. And more than just Rand sees the Fade. It's Rand, Mat, Perrin, and a few others see the Fade. So they go home to take care of their farm. That's when they're attacked. Tam already has the sword out. He doesn't rip it from under the bed in the middle of a fight scene, which the Trolloc would have killed him when he leaned over to do that. And there's supposed to be a lot of Trollocs there, not one. Would have been a little more exciting. Tam does get injured, does go back to Emond's Field. That part they got correct. They didn't do the fever dream part, which would have made more sense to add it in and do it, because he had to travel back to Emond's Field anyways. The battle in Emond's Field. You can tell the people who adapted this do not like strong men. Let's ignore the fact Tam Altor was cast too short. Not a big deal. But the first thing you notice, they start off with Mat's father, who's supposed to be a successful horse trader and farmer, and they make him a town man-whore. Then they make Mat's mother the town drunk. Those weren't the families that were supposed to be that. The Coplans and the Bruns were supposed to be the drunks and the troublemakers. So they took a strong, good role model and turned him into trash. Where was Master Luhhan? You're really going to replace the Master Blacksmith so you can have a wife just to kill her and drive a story for a male character. How many times have people complained about that? Perrin's original storyline was not driven by the death of a female. All 3 boys left for the protection of Emond's Field, and it had nothing to do with the second Trolloc attack. The Wine Spring Inn. It looked like crap. There was no wine spring nearby, and it's supposed to be right next to the wine spring. All 3 of these boys are just becoming adults. They are just turning into adults. There is no way for any of them to be married already because of their age, because they have different things they do to get to the marriage point, and add that in to drive a story along that was not needed. Not a good adaptation so far. Let's talk about the buildings so far that we've seen. Garbage. Very much garbage. I could 3D print Dungeons & Dragons props for a tabletop game that looks better than that. Introduction to characters. So far, they have screwed up every introduction of characters. By the way, I'm not even going to talk about the added scene in the Wine Spring Inn that shouldn't have existed between Matt and Egwene, because that wouldn't have happened either in the story. If you've read the story, if you're a fan of the story, that wouldn't have happened yet, because that just wasn't them yet. And it never happens between them anyways. Yeah, spoiler, big deal. Moiraine never got injured. Nynaeve was never needed to save the day that way at that time. They skipped over the real introduction of when Nynaeve gets induction, and at the same time, around the same, I think Tom joins them at about that same time too. Yes, because they're all there before they go to Shadar Logoth. And then they're all supposed to be divided back out. Matt, Rand, and Tom end up in a boat, not in a crappy mining town. Perrin and Egwene end up finding a Elias Manchura. It ties Perrin to the wolves through Elias. So far, I pretty much broke down all 3 episodes in this, and how, I must not forget the key part they really screwed up on. Thom Merrilin. They didn't even get somebody that fits the look. If you're not going to get somebody that fits the look, pick somebody who can actually sing and sound like they can talk in high chant. We didn't need a spaghetti western gunslinger who replaces guns with knives. We didn't need that. That wasn't Thom Merrilin. Tom was a court bard that, through circumstances described in the book, which I won't go into to ruin it, ends up being a gleeman. There was no patch-colored cloak. In fact, I noticed a lack of cloaks when they introduced the white cloaks, as well as a lack of the breastplate and the lances. It kind of looked like they had it, but looked more like they had spears. Also introduced early, by the way, but let's get back to Tom. The character in the show can't even play the guitar. His singing wouldn't even pass for country music singing. It goes from a master musician who's an expert at the lap harp and the flute and high chant and storytelling to a gruff voice, can't sing, wannabe spaghetti western knife slinger. And the Aiel they found and pulled out of the cage was supposed to be alive and found by Perrin a little bit later in the storyline. The adaptation for the story would be a 1 star out of 5. My 2 reviews I've done on it on the website, Rotten Tomatoes and Amazon Prime, I have given it 3 out of 5 because of the visuals are actually pretty good, except for the towns and the buildings. The spell casting looks pretty nice, even though it's a little outrageous for the movements. But yeah. I'll get into more reviews of the Wheel of Time in another video. Thank you.